All right, so today we are going on a deep dive that is, well, specifically for you.
Yeah, that's right.
We're talking all about how to study.
Especially for those of you out there who maybe think,
Who've never even,
I don't even know where to start.
never even really done it before, right?
Yeah.
We've got some great articles lined up,
Thank you.
even some tips from folks online who are learning just like you.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of this deep dive, you should be walking away feeling pretty confident.
Oh, yeah.
That
Yeah.
you can learn anything,
Especially English.
especially English,
Which is what,
which is what we're all about here, right?
that's why you're listening.
So where do we even begin?
Well, you know what might be the most surprising thing? The best place to start is with your why.
Your why.
Yeah, why do you want to learn English?
Okay,
What are you hoping to achieve?
that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just sort of jumped into learning without really thinking about
Mm-hmm.
what their goals are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And having a clear purpose, it really makes a difference.
Okay.
It's like having a destination in mind before you set out on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
What are you excited about?
Okay.
Is it connecting with family?
Oh.
Is it getting a better job? Understanding your favorite movies?
That is really motivating
Yeah.
to think about it like that.
It is.
Because it's like your why, that becomes your fuel
Absolutely.
for all those days where you just don't feel like
Right.
cracking open a book.
Especially when it feels tough.
Right.
That's your fuel.
Yeah.
So once you got that why figured out,
Okay.
then I think the next step is to understand the building blocks of learning.
Okay, so we got to get that foundation.
Yeah, get that foundation.
And I think that the most important thing to remember here is it's all about being active.
Yes.
Active learning.
Active, not passive learning.
That's right. Effective studying isn't just about passively reading a book
Right.
or, listening to someone talk
Right. You can't just have it on in the background.
while you're doing the dishes.
You got to actively engage with the information.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, our sources mentioned a few
Okay.
really helpful techniques.
Okay.
And one is summarizing information in your own words.
Okay, I've heard that before.
Yeah.
But how does that actually help you learn?
So let's say you're trying to learn how to use the past tense in English.
Okay.
Instead of just copying the rules from a textbook,
Right.
you could try explaining those rules to yourself
Ah, okay.
or even to someone else.
So it's like you're teaching it to yourself.
Exactly. And by putting things into your own words, you're making the information more meaningful and memorable.
Yeah.
Another technique is asking yourself questions as you go.
Okay, so if I'm reading a text in English,
Mm-hmm.
I should be stopping every couple of sentences and saying
Yeah.
wait, what does that word mean? Or
Yeah.
why did they say it like that?
Why did the author say that exactly?
Yeah, okay.
Asking questions forces you to think critically and to connect the dots.
Makes sense because you're not just absorbing,
Yeah.
you're thinking about it.
You're interacting with the material.
Yeah, okay. No.
Here's one that might sound a little strange.
Okay.
Try teaching the material to someone else, even if it's just an imaginary friend.
To an imaginary friend.
I know it sounds silly,
Okay.
but when you try to explain something out loud, it forces you to organize your thoughts and identify any gaps in your understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it can make learning a lot more fun.
Okay, so I can talk to my rubber ducky about,
Exactly.
the past participle.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So we've got our motivation sorted.
Yeah.
We're actively learning.
All right.
What's next?
Now let's talk about creating a study plan.
A study plan. I know a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
are very intimidated by the idea of a study schedule
Yeah.
because it can seem very
I understand that feeling,
strict.
but a well-designed study plan can actually be incredibly freeing.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Think of it like this. A study plan helps you break down your goals
Okay.
into smaller, manageable chunks.
Okay.
It takes away that feeling of being overwhelmed
Yeah.
because you know exactly what you need to do and when.
So it's like a roadmap.
It's like a roadmap
For your learning.
for your learning journey. That's a great way to put it.
Okay. All right. So what does a typical study plan even look like?
One of the sources we found suggested a simple weekly schedule,
Okay.
and it divided the week into study days and non-study days.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
So on study days, you have certain blocks of time dedicated to,
Right. You might have time for reviewing notes, doing
Yeah.
practice exercises, or even just relaxed reading in English.
okay. And then on non-study days, you just take a break.
You take a break, let your brain rest.
Yeah.
It's important to give yourself time to recharge so you don't burn out.
That's really good advice.
Yeah.
Because I know I tend to push myself too hard sometimes.
We all do. But remember, learning is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Consistency is key.
So we got our motivation. We're actively learning. We have a plan.
Hmm.
What else do we need to know?
Well, one of the things that came up in our research
Okay.
was the importance of mini reviews.
Mini reviews. What are those?
It's a simple but powerful technique.
Okay.
It just means taking a few minutes each day to quickly go over
Okay.
what you've learned recently.
So if I'm learning like new vocabulary
Mm-hmm.
every day, I should spend 5 minutes looking back at yesterday's words.
Exactly. These mini reviews help to reinforce the information in your memory.
Okay.
And here's the cool part. They actually tap into how our brains work.
How so?
Research shows that we tend to forget things over time,
Yeah.
but by revisiting information regularly, we can actually slow down that forgetting process.
So it's like reminding our brains that this is important.
Exactly. It's like giving your brain a little nudge.
Yeah.
And the best part is, mini reviews don't have to be long or complicated.
Okay.
You can do them anywhere, anytime.
This is really helpful. I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
That's great, but remember, this is just the beginning.
Oof, there's more.
There's a lot more to learn about effective studying.
Oh, no.
Don't worry. We're going to keep diving deeper in the next part of the episode.
Okay, so stay with us.
We'll be back soon with more tips and strategies to help you become a confident, successful learner.
I can't wait. Okay, so welcome back to our deep dive on how to study.
Yes! Welcome back.
In the last part, we talked about finding your motivation, getting actively involved in learning,
Yeah,
and even creating a study plan.
that's right.
Now we're going to delve into some specific study techniques that can help you make the most of your study time.
Yes, let's get tactical.
I'm ready to get tactical. What's the first technique?
Okay, so let's revisit note-taking.
Note-taking.
Yeah, it might seem basic,
Okay.
but there's a real art to taking notes that actually help you
Right.
learn and remember information.
Yeah. I've always struggled with note-taking.
Mm.
I feel like I either end up writing down every single word
Yeah,
or I'm trying to be too brief and I miss
right.
really important details.
I hear you. A lot of people fall into those traps, but there are ways to make note-taking more effective.
Okay.
One technique that came up in our sources is called active recall note-taking.
Active recall note-taking. What's that all about?
So it's a way of engaging with the material
Okay.
as you're taking notes.
Yeah.
Instead of passively copying down everything you hear or read,
Right.
you focus on summarizing the key ideas
Okay.
in your own words.
So it's like creating your own mini textbook.
Exactly. And here's a helpful tip. As you're taking notes, leave some blank spaces.
Okay.
Then after you finish a section, go back and try to fill in those blanks from memory.
So it's like a built-in self-test.
Precisely by forcing yourself to recall the information.
Okay.
You're strengthening your memory and making the learning process more active.
I'm definitely going to try that. Any other note-taking tips?
Absolutely. Another source suggested using visual aids, like diagrams or charts or mind maps
Mind maps, yeah.
to organize information.
Those are the ones that look like a spider web, right?
That's right. They're a fantastic way to visualize the connections between different ideas. And the great thing about mind maps is that you can get really creative with them.
Yeah.
Use different colors, draw little pictures, whatever helps you remember the information.
I love that.
Yep.
It's like turning your notes into a work of art.
Exactly. And speaking of making learning more engaging,
Okay.
let's talk about flashcards.
Flashcards. I used to think those were just for kids,
Yeah.
but I've heard that they can be really helpful for adults too.
They absolutely can. Flashcards are a classic study tool for a reason.
Oh, okay.
They're a great way to test your knowledge
Yeah.
and practice recalling information quickly.
Remind me how they work again.
It's all about that active recall we talked about earlier.
Okay.
You write a question on one side of the card,
Mm-hmm.
the answer on the other side.
Mm.
Then you quiz yourself flipping through the cards, trying to answer the questions without peeking.
That makes sense, but it sounds a little bit boring,
Yeah.
to be honest. Any tips on how to make flashcards more fun?
Definitely don't be afraid to get creative with your flashcards instead of just writing dry facts.
Okay.
Try using images, drawings, or even silly rhymes
Rhyme.
to make the information more memorable.
Rhyming flashcards. I like it.
And you can even turn it into a game.
Oh.
Set a timer and see how many cards you can get through in a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Or challenge a friend to a flashcard duel.
A duel. Now you're talking. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've covered note-taking visual aids and flashcards.
Okay.
What other tools should we add to our study arsenal?
This next one might seem obvious.
Okay.
But it's absolutely crucial. Practice.
Practice makes perfect. but
Practice makes perfect, but how do we make sure
Yeah,
we're practicing effectively?
that's a great question.
One strategy that's really helpful is something called spaced practice.
Spaced practice. I think I've heard of. Doesn't it have something to do with how our brains work?
It does. Space practice takes advantage of the fact that our brains tend to forget things over time.
Okay.
Instead of cramming all of your practice into one long session,
Right.
you spread it out over time.
So instead of studying for 3 hours straight,
Yeah,
I might do 30 minutes a day for 6 days.
exactly. By spacing out your study sessions,
Okay.
you're giving your brain a chance to forget the information and then relearn it.
And that somehow makes the memory stronger?
It does, think of it like building a muscle.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect to get strong by lifting weights only once.
Right.
You need to lift weights regularly over time.
Mm-hmm.
The same goes for your brain. Short, frequent bursts of practice
Okay.
are much more effective for long-term learning.
Wow, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to try incorporating spaced practice into my study routine.
I think you'll find it makes a big difference.
Okay.
And while we're on the topic of practice, let's talk about the importance of active practice.
Active practice, what does that mean?
It means actively doing something with the information you're learning.
Okay.
So instead of just passively reading or listening,
Right.
you're engaging with the material in a more hands-on way.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, let's say you're learning new English vocabulary words.
Okay.
Instead of just reading the words and their definitions,
Right.
you could try using them in sentences,
Okay.
writing a short story, or even having a conversation with someone.
So it's about putting the knowledge into action.
Exactly. And that brings us to another powerful study technique, teaching.
Teaching, you mean like actually teaching someone else?
Yes. One of the best ways to solidify your understanding of something
Okay.
is to try to teach it to someone else.
I can see how that would be helpful.
Right.
Because when you have to explain it to another person,
You really have to know your stuff.
you really have to know it.
Yeah. It forces you to think about the information in a different way
Mm-hmm.
and to anticipate questions.
I never thought about it like that, but that makes a lot of sense.
And you don't necessarily have to teach a real person.
Oh.
You could try explaining the material to a pet, a stuffed animal,
Okay.
or even that imaginary friend we talked about earlier.
Okay, so now I have permission to talk to my imaginary friend
Absolutely.
about English grammar.
Whatever works for you, the key is to make the learning process
Okay.
active and engaging.
This is all great stuff.
Yeah.
So far, we've got active recall, note-taking, visual aids, flashcards, spaced practice, active practice, and teaching.
That's a lot.
Anything else we should add to our toolbox?
Just one more thing,
Okay.
and it's an important one. Be kind to yourself.
Oh, that's good advice for life in general.
It is, but it's especially important when it comes to learning.
Okay.
It's a journey, not a race.
Mm-hmm.
Don't expect to become fluent in English overnight.
We're all work in progress, right?
Exactly. Be patient with yourself, celebrate your small victories,
Okay.
and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Mistakes are a natural part of the learning process.
I think that's something that a lot of people forget,
Yeah.
especially when they're first starting out.
Mm.
They get discouraged
Yeah.
when they don't see results right away.
It's understandable, but it's important to remember that everyone learns at their own pace.
Right.
There's no need to compare yourself to others.
That's really encouraging.
Yeah.
I think we've covered a lot of ground in this part.
We've explored a range of powerful study techniques that you can start using today.
Awesome.
But our journey isn't over yet.
Oh, there's more.
In the next part of our deep dive,
Okay.
we're going to delve into strategies for staying motivated
Okay.
and overcoming common study challenges.
I'm intrigued. Stay tuned. And we are back for the final part
Final part.
of our deep dive on how to study.
That's right.
We've explored some really effective techniques to help you learn and remember information,
Absolutely.
but even
Stop
with
it.
tools and strategies.
Even with all that, staying motivated and on track can be a challenge.
It's so true,
And
because life gets in the way.
Life gets in the way.
And sometimes it's just hard to find that
Yeah.
energy or motivation to
Yeah.
crack open a book.
That's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
But there are some things that
Yeah.
you can do to help you overcome those slumps
All right.
and keep moving forward
Okay, I'm ready.
on your learning journey.
What's the first strategy?
One of the most important things
Yeah.
is to set realistic goals
Realistic goal.
to yourself.
You know, I think sometimes I get carried away
Yeah.
and I set these huge ambitious goals
Yes.
and then I just feel overwhelmed.
It's easy to do, especially when you're excited about learning something new.
Right.
But, setting smaller, achievable goals can actually be much more motivating.
Oh, okay. So instead of saying,
Yeah.
I'm going to be fluent in English in 3 months,
Right.
I might say,
You might say.
I'm going to learn 10 new words this week.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
When you achieve those smaller goals,
Mm-hmm.
it gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
And it keeps you moving forward.
So it's like building momentum.
It is like building momentum.
What else can we do to stay motivated?
Another key strategy is to find ways to make learning enjoyable.
Okay.
Studying shouldn't feel like a chore.
I love that. And, we talked about some fun study hacks earlier.
Yes, we did.
Like using flashcards.
Yeah.
Mind maps.
Those are great examples.
Yeah.
But, there are so many other ways to make learning fun.
Okay.
If you enjoy music, try listening to English songs or podcasts.
Okay.
If you're a visual learner, watch movies or TV shows in English with subtitles.
It's all about finding what works for you.
Exactly. Find what sparks your interest.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to get creative. You could start an English conversation group with friends.
Okay.
Or join an online language exchange.
Right.
Or even use apps and games.
Oh, yeah.
To make learning more interactive.
But what about those days where even with all those fun activities, motivation has just disappeared?
We all have those days.
Yeah.
And, one of the most powerful things you can do is remind yourself of your why.
Back to the foundation.
Back to the foundation.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this in the first place?
Why am I learning English?
Exactly. Take a moment to reconnect with your motivation.
Yeah.
Why did you start learning English? What are you hoping to achieve? Visualize yourself accomplishing those goals.
Yeah. You know what?
Yeah.
I can just picture it now. I am talking with my grandchildren
There you go.
in English.
Yeah.
And I'm traveling the world and confidently communicating with people from other cultures.
That's the power of your why.
Yeah.
It can lift you up and keep you going even when you face challenges.
What about rewards?
Oh, reward.
Can those help with motivation?
Absolutely. It's important to celebrate your progress and reward yourself for your hard work.
Totally.
It doesn't have to be anything big. Right.
It could be as simple as taking a break to do something you enjoy.
Okay.
Watching a movie or having a special meal.
Those little rewards can make a big difference.
They can.
Yeah.
So, it's like acknowledging your efforts.
Yeah.
And giving yourself a pat on the back.
Totally. But what happens when you hit a roadblock?
Ooh, roadblocks.
Yeah. What if you're really struggling to understand a particular concept or grammar rule?
It happens to everyone.
Yeah.
The important thing is to remember that you're not alone.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
That can be hard.
It can be hard, but it's so important.
Yeah.
Reach out to a teacher, a tutor, a friend, someone in your community who speaks English well.
Yeah.
Sometimes all it takes is a different explanation or perspective to help things click into place.
That's so true.
And remember, even the most experienced learners face challenges and setbacks.
Of course.
It's all part of the process.
It's all part of the process. I love that perspective.
So here we are at the end.
At the end.
Of our deep dive.
We made it.
We've covered so much.
We did.
From the foundations of learning to specific techniques, strategies for staying motivated.
All of it.
All of it. And, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that anyone can learn how to study.
That's right.
It's not something that you're born with.
It's not a talent.
It's a skill.
It's a skill that you can develop. Absolutely.
And the beauty of it is that it never ends.
It never ends. There's always something new to discover.
Totally.
A new skill to master. A new challenge to embrace.
So as you embark on your learning adventure, remember this. You are capable of achieving anything you set your mind to.
You are.
Believe in yourself, stay curious, and never stop learning.
We believe in you.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into how to study. We hope you found it informative and inspiring. Happy learning.
Happy learning, everyone.